Hey, welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host, Caleb.
Hey, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man.
So normally we like to talk about what we've been up to this week that's outside Star Wars, so we're going to start with that, and then we'll get into our main topics for today.
Hmm.
Um,
You want
finished,
to go first?
finished getting Britt to watch Highlander Season 1.
Hmm.
We are now in Season 2. She has met Joe. She's dealing with the Watcher shenanigans now. So we're now into the world building
Mhm.
part of the show, because with some still villain of the weeks. So we're no longer in France. We went back to Seacouver. I forgot that the dojo is in season 2.
It is.
I thought for those of y'all who don't know much about Highlander, the show takes place in a fictional city called Seacouver, which is like a mixture of Seattle and Vancouver, and so like it's that Pacific Northwest vibe, and so in the show, the main character Duncan eventually buys out a dojo, and it becomes kind of the main hub for the show. Whereas initially it's a antiques shop, which is because originally Duncan was supposed to be based off of Connor, because originally it was gonna be a prequel. As I learned recently that originally the show was gonna be a prequel series, and then they got Adrian Paul to play the character, and they were like, actually, now we kind of want it to be a sequel show. And so, kind of.
Yeah, the dojo is in season 2.
Yeah, for some reason I thought season 3 is when the dojo starts becoming more.
Me and you have not even gotten to season 3 yet.
So wait, does the big thing happen halfway through
The big
season
thing
2?
happens halfway through season 2.
Okay. Oh no, Brit's in for.
Brit's in for sad girl hours.
Well, we've been joking that Duncan's already sad boy hours right now, because like at the end of season 1, with
With the passing of spoilers for
Yeah.
a show that came out
in the 90s.
Darius, one of his oldest friends, is dead.
Yeah, which that I remember because we were watching that part where like he's yelling, and I was like, oh, it's the one time where I've seen Seth actually gutted by something.
Yeah,
It's one of the few times you have been gutted by something that I've witnessed.
yeah, like it's pretty rare to see me have an emotional response to anything.
But specifically seeing Duncan yell Darius, that's what got you.
And it's like, oh, we gotta find these motherfuckers now.
And so, yeah, we're in sad boy hours for that because of which really Duncan's sad boy hours is Duncan being very angry.
Yeah. Like, how do we know if Duncan's sad? Is he just randomly beating the shit out of people in the middle of the day?
To be fair, though, in season 2, the people he starts beating up immediately, pretty sure are neo-Nazis.
Yeah, don't feel too bad about it.
Because they had the whole skinhead thing going. Because Britt was like, why is even the girls bald? And I'm like, I think these are supposed to be skinheads.
Yeah, so just don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I don't feel too bad about that. Although he also takes his anger out on a bunch of the good watchers.
Just starts fucking people up.
But yeah, so we've now like met James Horton, who's like one of the ongoing like season 2 non-immortal antagonists, because he's like part of a group called the Hunters, who are a splinter group of the Watchers who want to kill immortals because of supremacy reasons. Weirdly enough, because like it's very much X-Men level issue of, oh, we're scared of them and we think that they're gonna try to replace us, so
Except
the immortals don't care about that.
Except they can't.
But by that I mean like that when they're worried that whoever gets the prize is gonna
go full
I'm conquering you.
Yeah.
And
full god emperor on humanity. Like, and to be fair, we have seen a bunch of immortals who
would absolutely
do that. At the rate that the show is going, it seems that it's 9-1
on wouldn't do that versus or would
do that as opposed to wouldn't.
I guess, but also like the other issue is because we had to talk about the rules of what happens with quickenings, because the rules with quickenings, a quickening in Highlander is when an immortal kills another immortal. Basically, a soul transfer happens
Yeah.
via lightning, as well as like knowledge and memories and all that get transferred over to the winner. And so
I remember during one of the more recent quickenings, it's the Templar guy. I remember I asked a question where I'm like, wait, so is this like a complete memory transfer or just informational transfer?
it's a little bit of both. It's a little
Okay.
column A, little column B.
Because that prompted like the question for me, wait, does that mean Duncan has now experienced the same level of emotional trigger warning, emotional abuse?
Oh,
Is that-
from his father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that guy was the guy that Duncan killed in that episode had a lot of dad emotional and physical. Because I think
Yes.
they make it very clear that that guy was also
Yeah.
physically abused by his dad. It's made very clear.
And I was like, because if that is how it works, that is a very like screwed up thing to.
I think it's both. I do think it's both.
Okay.
Um,
That
Now-
doesn't necessarily make it better.
And so like, the thing is though with the quickenings is
Mm.
there are 3 things that can happen when an immortal dies, and it's all dependent on the situation. If an immortal kills another immortal, the quickening happens as normal. The transfer of essence and memory go to the winner. If environment kills an immortal, it goes to the nearest immortal.
Okay.
So environment kills an immortal, nearest immortal gets the quickening. If a mortal kills an immortal, the quickening does not happen, and it's actually a waste of a quickening and then that essence is just gone.
Okay. That's new information because I was.
Were you not? Because there's a character in in the season finale for one that says that. In season 1 finale, Fitzkern
Oh, yeah.
Fitzkern says, "Hey, if y'all kill me, then that's a waste of a quickening."
And I think their response at the time was, "We don't care."
Yeah. And so that puts new light onto Darius's death.
Because it's
That's
like
2,000 years of history gone.
it's like
At the bare minimum. I am guessing 2,000 years because we don't really know how old Darius is. They don't really say.
yeah,
We know when he went from being a conqueror to a monk.
yeah,
We know that's 1,500 years before the events of the show, because they also restate that during Darius's funeral that Duncan and Fitzkern have for him. So like that's 1,500 years, and I'm gonna assume another 500 years of life. I'm gonna assume Darius was pretty old.
yeah.
And even if it's not that long, it's still like even if we just put 100 years onto it, that's 1,600 years of history wiped off the world,
Yep, just gone.
which is not only bad for immortals, it is bad for mortals.
Yeah, it's been for regular people too.
Because like, imagine all that lost history and knowledge that could have been put in books.
To be fair though, Darius wasn't just like hanging out doing nothing. He does have like
Yeah.
apprentices out in the world.
Yeah, he does. And also, you can assume that his watchers, I should say, over the years, because the Watchers have existed for a long time. Probably pre-Darius, because
Yeah.
Darius has the fifth, the fifth chronicle, which is like a keeping that the Watchers, basically one of the many keepings that Watchers keep of the history of the immortals that they track.
We make the joke, but for real, Watchers do just keep track of the kill count.
Well, because Joe mentions that the reason that they exist is to track history and to book it and record it. Basically, their job is being record keepers, because eventually one day they can share this information.
Yep.
In theory.
In theory, whenever someone wins the game.
Yeah, because they figure that you can't. Because Duncan mentions, well, why haven't you shared it already, right? Because like, why? What's preventing you from just going public with this already? And Joe's like, well, for one, when we first existed, would have considered us. They would have just witch hunted everybody that we had records of. And Duncan's like, well, okay, that's fair because I did go through that.
Yeah. Because fucking the McLeod's first girlfriends are always the worst.
Duncan didn't really have a bad first girlfriend. He didn't have that issue. He had a bad dad, though. His dad kicked him out. That was...
Oh,
yeah. Remember, it was his dad. Duncan didn't really have a girlfriend that kicked him out.
It was Connor's girlfriend that, like...
Just straight up said, kill him.
Yeah, I'm like... Like, to me, like, the reactions in Highlander from family members back in the day, I'm like... I'm still one of the people who's like, you know, it would be nice if they were like, oh, hell yeah, this is sweet, but also I understand, like, probably the logic of, you know what, probably witchcraft if I, like, saw someone I knew, like, if Andrew got impaled with a javelin in those times and came back, like, a day and a half later perfectly fine, I'd freak the fuck out, too.
Especially because this is pre-science, really. Like, pre-medical science, anyways. And like... This is when...
Because your options back in the day are either, this is unholy devil magic, or divine intervention.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like...
Oh, for coming back. Yeah. And divine intervention is not the way that most people would, like... Because they were very supernatural, like
yeah.
People were very superstitious back then. And so, like... That's why. And so Joe's like, we couldn't have done it in the superstitious days because...
Yeah.
Superstition, and then we can't do it today because today I'd be locked up in a loony bin.
They think I was crazy, so that's not an option.
And those who don't think I was crazy would probably lock you in a lab for science, and which we've already seen.
As it turns out, a car is an effective means to defeat an immortal.
Or at least knock them out long enough, and then you drug them a bunch. And
second best option is a shotgun.
Yeah, knock them out, drug them a bunch, and then you can do whatever you want with an immortal.
Yeah.
That as we learned in season 1. Which actually, I think that's the first episode that... Because we've also been making Pixie watch. And so... And Zach. Pixie and Zach are watching now, and so... They're on episode 7. They just got past the Caleb and Joshua episode.
The best... interaction is, nah, the dead man, we killed him, and all of the, like, park rangers and police just laughing.
But yeah, I enjoy sharing, like, Zach and I have joked, I've created a cult of Highlander. I'm slowly getting more and more people to watch it. Yeah. Look, I'm trying to get everybody prepared for the second coming of Highlander now. Starring Henry Cavill.
Yeah, he needs something to do now.
I mean, he's got plenty of things he's doing, though. He's doing that, and he's getting his Warhammer show that he's working on, and so, I mean, he's a busy man. But, yeah, that's the majority of what I've done. I mean, obviously, we've done D&D stuff.
We did D&D stuff. You've been doing it a lot.
Yep, because we got Acquisitions back. We did a session of that. I'm getting some new art done for Acquisitions. That's exciting. So
we wrapped up
the Blood Knight arc.
The Blood Knight arc last night
for Grim Hollow, and then Ravenloft is still going through their Curse of Strahd stuff.
The other things that we've kind of been doing recently, we've been playing the First Descendant.
Yes, we've been playing First Descendant, and that is honestly a chill vibe. Like it's very lore heavy, but if you don't pay attention to the lore, it's still a fun game.
Yeah.
It's very... If you like Warframe, Destiny, Apex, you'll probably like First Descendant.
I'd say it's more like if Warframe and Destiny had a child.
But it has like Apex mechanics with like faster travel. Because even Warframe, you can't travel the same way. Like it's very...
The grappling hook does make it different. I think like Destiny's version of the grappling hook or their movement
is the bike.
Is a bike, yeah.
Yeah, and so it is nice having a faster travel, even though the maps aren't huge. They're big, but they're not huge.
Like you can get through most map sections on foot pretty.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's quick travel options if you have to back travel.
We learned that.
Yeah, we learned about other... Yeah, I learned... Because I've been playing with Alex as well. And so I learned from him. I was like... Because there's like a thing in the game that looks like a mechanical like
It
beach
looks like
chair.
a tanning bed.
Yeah, tanning bed. And so we were like, what the hell is this? And then I was playing with Alex, and he's like, oh, that's another like mini quick travel, because the main quick travels are like the little camps
Yeah.
that you can go to throughout each section of the map. But then there's the mini ones that are a little bit further, are closer to like dungeons and stuff. That way, if you need to get to a dungeon again quickly, you can use that one instead. Although you can't change your character there. You have to be at an outpost or at Albion to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
we've all got our thoughts.
I mean,
Alpha is like not as much. I think he isn't as much of a jerk.
I don't think he means to be. I think it's a case of he's just a hard ass sometimes, and like that can create a misunderstanding of things. He's starting to cool down where I'm at in the story, though. Like he's starting to be more willing to work with the guide, which is like this thing. It's very Cortana.
Yeah.
It's very Cortana for Halo fans.
Like I remember while we were going, because when I joined, I started at like level 1, and then you guys helped me catch up.
Yeah, because I was guiding Pixie and Zach through it as I'm trying to catch up with Britt and Steph.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got Pixie and Zach through it one night, and then you were watching. And then the next morning, you're like, "Hey, I've been playing it," and I'm like, "Oh, okay."
I'm putting in some work, trying to catch up.
And so I helped guide you the rest of the way with them, and then we've all now the three of you are at the same kind of place. Although now you're actually a little bit ahead.
I think I'm like
you're like a mission or
in
two
between the levels.
Yeah,
story wise, I'm ahead.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, story wise is what matters. Character level is irrelevant, really. It's really your weapon level that matters the most.
It took me a minute to figure that out because I forgot to upgrade my guns after a couple of missions.
Yeah, and the fun part is being able to find your favorite gun and then just transfer levels to that gun.
You can transfer levels to the gun? Okay.
Yeah, so if say I'll have if you find like you know how you trash the guns, don't trash all the guns. Trash the levels that are below your current gun, but keep the levels that are above. And you can transfer those levels to your gun.
Okay.
That way, if you have a favorite gun, you don't have to trash your favorite gun just to have a higher powered weapon. Which is good to know, especially once you get like the orange/golden weapons, because then you aren't trashing gold weapons.
Right now, most of my stuff is like a purple or a color. I don't know.
Purple or green, probably.
Yeah.
I have all orange right now because I've been grind. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's got a little bit of Destiny, a little bit of Shadow of Colossus with the Colossus fights, because there's like these robot colossi that like are in the lore. They are drawn to the Iron Heart, which is like a super weapon. A set of 3 super weapons that you can find that you're searching for in the story.
General gameplay loop is typically like you go to a region, you do like three
separate missions that are in that region, like in a section of the region, and then you do a boss fight, and then you do another section of that region, do 3 more missions, boss fight / dungeon.
Yeah.
And then after you've completed that about 3 times, you go back to Albion, which is the home base, and then you have a Colossi fight, and then you restart the loop.
Yep.
Although sometimes that loop is mixed with, sometimes they mix it up and go, no Colossus fight, go back to, well, we only did 2 of the regions, but we wanted you back at Albion to do story stuff, and now you go back to the region you were just in, and finish it up, and then Colossi fight. So sometimes they'll mix it up, and it's it's buggy, there are bugs, because it is a new game, it is free to play. So there are some heavy microtransactions where they do want you to buy things. The majority of which is currently characters.
Yeah.
Like because right now the grinding is to unlock more characters to play as, because each character has special abilities. So the grind is in getting more characters unlocked, as well as upgrading your weapons more, which is also where that's actually the downside to some of the microtransactions, is it is kind of pay to win in that regard, in that you can buy weapons. That's kind of that's probably my only gripe with it. Also, the battle pass I have some gripes with, because there is a battle pass. I looked at it, and unlike say Fortnite or Overwatch, where you can buy the battle pass with the in-game currency after you pay money to get the in-game currency. Usually, you earn back enough of that in-game currency to buy the next battle pass, right? Because like that's how Fortnite works and how Overwatch works. They kind of screw you over on that. If you do the math, you're short by like 200 of their coin, of whatever their version of V-Bucks is.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's shady.
A little bit, yeah.
That's a little bit like,
Now,
good news is there are free stuff on the battle pass.
Yeah.
Like I unlocked a gun. Like that's how I got my last orange weapon, gold weapon. It's a little grenade launcher.
So, keeping on the topic of video games, I've been continuing through Shadows of the Erdtree,
Yep.
and I found a little... So one of the issues that I've been having is, where the fuck do I go?
I mean that's very Elden Ring in general though. Like if it's your first time playing, it's like, where do I go?
Yeah. Because in my like stance for most video games is, when I go through them for the first time, I don't usually look up like a how-to or where-to thing unless I'm genuinely stuck. So for this one, I was like, okay, I know that I'm in this, like, I'm in a place called the Black Cube. It's flooded.
Oh.
So I already cleared out the major bosses and everything in the area, but I never put the water down. So I was like, you know what? I'll spend some time exploring.
Yeah.
And eventually I get up to the thing, push the lever, it does the little cutscene for, and the water is gone, you know, because all games that do this have cutscenes like that. So I get down, I go, I take care of another Erdtree avatar, which are like little, you know what they look like.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, cool. Huh. This looks like an elevator. Wonder if it's gonna take me down or up. Step on it, press the little button. It's going down. I'm like, alright.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it go down? I keep going for like a good 2 minutes. And I get down to the bottom and I'm like, alright, go. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, rest point, hit it, go over. I'm like, this is a rickety old bridge over this abysmal chasm. Okay, I'll go across it. Nothing bad happens on the bridge, and it's like, another church. Okay, cool. Little rest point, hit that. I'm like, okay, let's go and look out into the little doorway behind it. Wide open area with nothing in it. This looks like a boss fight. And this boss fight is a flower.
Flower power.
Mm-hmm.
So Flowey's coming to get you.
Flowey came to get me, and he was rather upset.
That's generally correct for Flowey.
And so I was like, you know what? I got these weapons from another boss I defeated earlier. You're a plant. You're probably weak to fire. I'm gonna come back. I got something for you. So I go back. I'm like, hey, keep wanting to call him Hedwig. That's not his name. Hugh. Hugh is his name.
Yeah, Mother Hedwig is from our Grim Hollow game.
Yeah. And so I'm like, hey man, I need you to work on these swords. And he's like, yep, I'm just gonna blacksmith them up. I'm like, good. So I get those upgraded as high as I can. I'm like, alright, round 2 with this flower. As it turns out, this is a 3-phase boss fight against this one flower. I bring my little summon lady, Tasha. She's pretty cool. She's like an assassin lady who... that's lore stuff. I'm not going to explain that.
Yeah.
What you need to know is she does damage over time when her ability kicks off.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And at first, I was really struggling with it, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm getting close to always finishing this flower off, but I'm missing something. Because it's like, it'll be like maybe 2 or 3 hits away from dying, and I'm like, something's wrong here. Because what would happen is that it would poise break and lean over before it would die and go into the next phase, and I'm like, well, that's weird. So I go and I look it up, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, when the flower gets like that, you can go and hit it, and it'll take off like 25% of its health for the next phase. I'm like, oh.
Okay.
So I should have been stabbing it while it was down. I don't know why I thought I had to fight honorably against a flower. That was stupid. It was. I already brought like a ghost and was burning it. Why did I not think to just go and hit it for a critical hit?
Yeah.
2 or 3 more tries after that, and it eventually died.
Well, there you go. That yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, now I'm at a point where the rest of like the other NPCs that I travel to this land with, I'm like, oh, you guys figured out that I'm actually here to go and murder Mikola. And so you're all pissed about that. Okay, well, time for this 5 versus 2, because I got one other guy to help me, so this is gonna go great.
Yep.
So that's what I'm dealing with. I like the DLC. It's been fun. It is.
I've heard nothing but good about it.
It is well worth the $40.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything really bad about the DLC, so I'm not surprised.
I will also leave off on the note for it. Miyazaki's like we already know who that is.
The creator of the those type of games.
Yeah.
For the sake of
the sake of the audience. He's like, oh yeah, it's about as big as the starting area of Limgrave. Miyazaki is a fucking liar.
It's a little bit bigger.
It's a little bit bigger than that. There are points where you will go off the map. It will not explain things to you.
I will say we talked about this, I think, last week or the week before, about how good expansions are essentially their own like game.
Yeah.
And honestly, the FromSoft games tend to follow the classic of that idea very well, which is we do a DLC. We don't call it an expansion anymore, but we do a DLC, and it's essentially an expansion, and it's essentially playing another game. That you're essentially playing a sequel. Well, just about like a mini sequel. And so, like, it's kind of a lost art form when it comes to DLCs. Yeah. Like nowadays, a DLC will probably be like half the time of the main game, whereas it sounds like FromSoft has kept the idea of no, it's about maybe a couple hours shorter than than the main game, but it's still long.
Yeah.
Like it's still you get your money's worth. For sure. So yeah, if there's nothing else that you've been up to really that you want to talk about, we can.
Yeah, that's about it.
We can jump into news.
We've covered most of this.
Yeah, today's gonna be a shorter episode. We do have a couple news pieces, and then we got the main topic, which is pretty short. So jumping into news, the Bad Batch is over, and it seems things are not slowing down for Lucasfilm Animation, as they've just posted a new spot for a production coordinator at Lucasfilm in San Francisco. It doesn't really come as a surprise to me that they're making plans already for the next animated project, but it's good to see confirmation. So how do you feel about that? I mean, are you kind of on that same page where it's like...
Let's see what they come up with.
Yeah, like you're on that same page of this is expected that they're going to do something. It's just good to see the confirmation that, okay, yeah, they are doing something. Because that's where I am. It's like, I knew they were going to start working on another animated project because there's no way they're not.
Yeah.
But
it's one of those type of things.
It's one of those things of, I knew this was coming, but now we have the proof. So yeah. In movie news, though, Sean Levy, the director of Deadpool and Wolverine that's coming out, revealed that his Star Wars film project is currently being written by Jonathan Tropper, who worked with him previously on the Adam Project, which I heard was a pretty good Netflix film. It's
I
got
haven't
Ryan
seen it,
Reynolds and yeah. So from what I've heard, it's pretty good. It's still on my list to see. It looked nice. Obviously, though, in the case of this film, this is so early in pre-production because they're just now talking about writing on it. That we don't really have any other information about what this film is about, so there's really nothing to judge about this film yet. And it's, in fact, the furthest away, most likely, from seeing a release, as we still have the other 3 projects that we do know are happening for sure. Because this one could all obviously be another Star Wars film where they, like, announce they're doing it and then pull back on it. But the other 3 films that we know for sure are happening are the Dawn of the Jedi film, the New Jedi Order film with Rey, and the Mandalorian and Grogu, which actually does have a release date for May 22nd of 2026. So that's the one that's happening for sure the most, is the Mandalorian and Grogu. We have a date for it. It's only a couple years out, which means they're probably going to start filming next year, like sometime either late this year or early next year, in order to get it done in time. So that one's definitely happening, whereas the Dawn of the Jedi and New Jedi Order ones are more than likely happening. They're like they're for sure happening, but something could still fall. And then this one that with Sean Levy is in my... It could happen, but it's so far out that who knows. And so... But that's exciting news still. And I know naming people who do things, that's not your strongest suit of judging whether a film's going to be good or not, or building excitement for you. But knowing that the director of the Deadpool and Wolverine film is behind the direction anyways, not the writing, hopefully should inspire a little confidence in the project. Jonathan Tropper, I looked at what else he's done because I was like, okay, what else has he done? Mostly a lot of shorter projects that are smaller, and so nothing major outside of the Adam project. And so this will be kind of a rite of passage, trial by fire situation, putting him into a big franchise. But since he's already worked with Sean Levy before, that probably will help make the dynamic work out. Because when you have a director and writer who have worked together before, that does help the process.
It either helps or they hate each other.
And it's unlikely that they'll work together again if they hate each other. Unless you're getting paid enough for that. So yeah, that's my kind of thoughts on that. That's it for news. It was a pretty short news week.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been discussions of stuff like video game, like obviously Outlaws is getting closer and closer. It's like it's almost less than a month away. And so there's some, obviously Ubisoft's trying to show it off a little more, but there's nothing really that worth talking about, like majorly. They talked about how you're like, there's no levels. What you do is you have contacts that you'll meet throughout the game that kind of boost your skills that way, rather than actually having a leveling system.
Okay.
So you'll learn new skills via trainers essentially as you make contacts in the underworld. So that's interesting take, especially for a Ubisoft game, because Ubisoft tends to.
You pay me 4,000 credits, I'll teach you how to quick draw.
But yeah, with all that, let's get into today's main topic of Tales from the Occlusion Zone: Family Ties. Spoilers ahead. This is a very short thing, so like I said, today's going to be a short episode. So we're just going to dig right into it. Last time with the Aurie crew, we found them on the Nihil prison ship, and they found Ghal Tarpfen's body covered in a shell. And that kind of seemed to be protecting her. As the weird, like, gray thing that's covering a bunch of people and killing them.
I'm just gonna call it the dust for now.
Yeah, the gray dust. It only has gotten on a couple of Gal's fingers and a couple toes.
Some of their toes. And so the agents are like, well, that's not a good sign.
And so, after some major panicking.
Oh, yeah. Important to note, the characters' perspectives will switch around sometime, and Visma, this is the first time I think we get to see inside her head.
Yeah, because I think we've had a couple like small interactions of Visma's perception of things, but nothing.
But nothing like as this one is mostly hers.
Yeah, I'd say this one.
And then it switches to Ghal.
Yeah, I'd say we get a lot of Visma's perspective, which is interesting. And I think this, up to this point, Visma's been kind of a hit or miss character for me, where it's like she's not poorly written. I just didn't like her entirely.
Yeah. She's your Seth Malikan.
Well, it's more of that she's just she's that enigma who doesn't want to talk to people, and it's just like, okay, so I'm meant to be cautious about this character. Like, obviously the writing is telling me that I should like this character, but also because they're mean to everybody else I like.
I think my like whether or not I will like Visma or not is I'm at a point of polite indifference.
But I'll say that Visma has definitely grown as a character, because Visma is kind of starting to let go of her hard exterior. Not to make a joke about Ghal being stuck in a cocoon.
Yeah.
And so like we
Visma
get
nearly having a full on just a little bit of a panic attack.
And so like and kind of letting her feelings show a little bit more. And so, plus Arcanians can be assholes sometimes, so it's like, it's hard to read an Arcanian sometimes, because, especially in Legends, Arcanians are not known for being the most likable people. Unless you're the offshoot kind, but that's because the normal Arcanians are assholes to you.
Yeah, so you understand the value of you understand the value of compassion.
Yeah.
Unless you chose to be like, you know what, fuck that.
And so, with that, though, we learn that Gal's not breathing, and her heart's not beating really either. Like, there's no pulse.
Yeah, and they're like, well, shit.
Because they have 9N or whatever, 6N.
6N.
They
go have 6N plug into a terminal
and learn medicine.
And
he's like, number 1, are they breathing?
No.
Number 2, is there a like a heartbeat? Is there?
No.
Well, shit.
They're like, and this will be
which also, I was reading that and I was like, how dumb are you? Like the rest of you, that you needed the robot to tell you those 2 things. Those should have been the first 2 things you checked.
Yeah. But they're also like, well,
but they're also panic mode.
We don't want the fucking dust thing that just eats everything.
Yeah, because they're also in panic mode. They don't know what to do. They don't know what they found, really.
Yeah.
And they basically make the hypothesis that Ghal is kind of in hibernation mode because of either panic or stress or something medical happened to her. And so something put her into a hibernation mode.
Yeah.
And so, because apparently Mon Calamari can do that. Apparently they
during times of like
drought or stress, they apparently can cocoon into like this, almost like they explain it looks like a little tadpole like egg essentially, and so they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and as like 6N as Joss and
I don't think we've seen that before. By the way, I don't think we've seen that with Mon Calamari.
Yeah, that's
before.
a new one.
So that's interesting to learn about their biology.
We should let Sawyer know.
Yeah, I think she knows. Sawyer probably already knows.
Yeah, and so Visma is like, well, and she just starts cracking open the shell.
Yeah,
because it's like, what was the point of us bringing her here if she dies?
Because right now they're all arguing about what to do. They're like, well, we can't touch it because we don't want to do this, but also we need to break it to get her out. And so Visma just like is internally getting more and more frustrated and just says fuck it.
Yeah.
And starts breaking it. And Josh is the one that's saying that they should be breaking it as well. And so Josh starts helping her, and then eventually Tanu starts helping, or Sue.
And Sue is like, all right, well, those are fucking.
I forget his first name all of a sudden. Yeah, I forget. Elping, yeah, there we go.
Elping Sue is like, those are biocontaminants. I'm gonna put them in these bags.
Yeah, they basically That way we don't accidentally like touch anything.
Yeah.
And they cauterize her fingers that have the.
Yeah, because it's like, we can't let those stay attached, otherwise she'll definitely die.
As well as her toes.
Yep.
And so, thankfully, only 2 toes go away.
2 toes, 2 fingers.
Well, they say a little bit more. They don't say exactly how many, but they say it's a little bit more than that. And so then they bandage it, obviously, because they're like, okay, wrap it up.
Like, all right, and now we're gonna put Ghal
on a cart and get out of here.
Put Ghal in the escape pod.
Yeah, as a makeshift quarantine.
And then they're like, all right, now we can ask questions. And she's like, yo, we gotta get the fuck out of the occlusion zone.
Well, before that, Ghal and
Visma have a conversation.
It's honestly so great, where Visma's trying to interrogate Ghal, but Gal's just like, I've done this so many times and you're doing it wrong.
It's like, first off, one question at a time.
Secondly, know your subject.
Yeah. But because things are difficult right now.
Because Visma doesn't even remember who, like, it's apparently like a situation where Visma doesn't even remember who Ghal really is. Mm-hmm. And Gal's like, no, I'm the reison that you got promoted, because that's my job. Yeah. My job was to background check everybody.
You were on our promotion list.
Yeah. I'm on the committee that approves those.
Yeah.
Like, it's my job to background check and make sure that, the people who get promoted deserve it. And, hey, it's impressive you got lieutenant, because you're, like, the youngest lieutenant in our...
Also, by the way, might be a little bit late, but did y'all get my message about how Senator Staros is a huge traitor?
Also they mentioned...
Jenny Wataro.
Yeah, Jenny Wataro.
And a couple others.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, we already kind of dealt with that.
We're dealing with it.
We're in the middle of it, yeah. We didn't get your entire message because it kind of cut in and out. And in fact, that's why we thought you were dead.
Yeah.
And so Ghal kind of explains, explains what happened to them, which is, she's like, I escaped on an escape pod, but then got captured, and because we know about her getting captured on Starlight. We know about that part, and she's like, I was captured on Starlight, but then I got off on an escape pod, and then I got recaptured.
Yep.
And
I've been here.
Yeah.
Under Nihil supervision, which has been the worst.
And then they mention that they're heading towards the wall, because they're trying to get out now that they potentially have a way out. Because, well, actually, no, they didn't take the...
They have it, but they're like, fuck, it's covered in the dust.
Yeah, so they don't know if they can use it or not yet. Because they're like, if we use it, will it start spreading this thing around the ship?
And we can't have that, so...
It's probably in a different escape pod.
Probably.
Depending how many escape pods the Aurie can have. I think it can have a couple. I don't know how many escape pods a long beam can have. Let's see. Because now I'm curious.
Time to find out.
It can have 24 passengers, so I imagine it has a few escape pods on it.
I'd say 4.
Yeah, depending on how many people can fit per.
Yeah, because, like, I imagine a normal escape pod can fit, like, 4 to 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's one designed for 24 passengers and, like, 3 crews and minimum of 3 crew members, so 27 people.
Maybe 5, because I would imagine, like, maybe 4 people per...
Yeah, that's, like, minimum 4, maximum of 6.
Yeah.
I don't mind it being a little cramped.
Because if it's 24... Yeah, if it's 24 passengers... Actually, it'd be 27 people total.
27, because 3 crew members at the minimum for a long beam.
Yeah. Well, they're usually about 10 meters, so I would say... Yeah, because we've also seen 6 people fit in an escape pod, because Clone Wars, because of the Plo Koon and his clones, which we're going to watch that episode pretty soon again.
And for our people who live in America, 10 meters is about 32 feet.
Yeah, so that should be enough for like 6 people. So 6, 12, 18, 24, so about 5.
Yeah, 5.
I would say
6,
5 at
depending on how
most.
crammed you want.
Maybe 5 at most, but maybe 6. So anyways, yeah, there's enough to put another. There's at least one other one to put another thing in for quarantine. So that way nobody messes with it. But yeah, so they're heading to the wall, and they explain that to Ghal, and Gal's like, excuse me? We need to go the other way. And they're like, why? And she's like, because I overheard them talking about something big happening at the wall, and we don't want to be there when it happens. And so they start going, well, we're already almost there, so... And in fact, as soon as they're done with that conversation, they arrive, only for immediately 2 Nihil ships approach, and then a third, and then another, and another.
Yep. And it's like,
And the reason, and like they before they get a chance to see all those ships arriving, they do check the comms.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we haven't been listening to our like stealth comms to see what the Nihil have been talking about lately. And for the first few minutes, they're like, oh, well, it's quiet. Nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
And then they hear screaming, and they're like, oh, shit, something's going down. What's going on? And then they
it's
realize
like,
there's laughing, and they realize,
they're celebrating.
but what are they celebrating?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going to find out next time, because that was the end of the story.
Yep.
The end of the story is all these Nihil ships showing up. Thankfully, our crew is still not seen.
Yep.
The Aurie has not been seen yet, despite there being like 6 Nihil ships now within this sector. And we're talking like cruisers.
Yeah. And at first they were like, are they here for us or for Ghal? And it's like, they would not need to send that many. So it's got to be something else.
Yeah, so it's exciting. It's scary but exciting. I'm interested to see what happens next. Honestly, that's how I always am with the short stories. I think the short stories are so good. The short stories should not be ignored. I think like they are some of the strongest writing. Like,
I like some of them more than others, I admit.
but as a whole, they're like,
as a whole, they're really good.
yeah. And so like, I feel like if you're a fan of the High Republic stuff and you're not reading the short stories, you're missing out. Unfortunately, it is hard to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, because you have to get the new issues of Star Wars Insider every month. And sometimes while a Star Wars Insider is out, depending on your bookstore, they might not have that issue yet right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might take a minute. Like I know Books A Million, where I generally pick up a lot of my books here, they won't always immediately have the Star Wars Insider when it comes out. So I'll have to wait maybe a week or 2 after it comes out. And by then we'll have already talked about it, because I'll get a digital copy off of, because you can also order digitally from Titan. They have their digital app.
Yeah.
And so you can order you can either do the individual, or you can buy the subscription, right? The 12-month subscription that a lot of magazines go off of, right? And so either way, you can do that either way, and that's a way to do it. But honestly, that's not an affordable option for everybody. And so because that's, I think, like $3 to $5 a month. I can't remember exactly how much each issue of Insider is right now. Let's see. It doesn't even say on here. Oh, it. Okay, for a subscription, it's $40 for half a year. So probably about you're probably getting a deal off of that, because normally they try to give you a they try to make it a little cheaper if you do the subscription model, right? But not much. They're usually like, it's a little cheaper. Okay, it's a little bit more expensive than I thought. It's $10 per issue. At least on their website. So it's not viable. It's not like
Yeah.
I can understand if people are like, I can't read them because they're expensive, and I can only really afford the books every few months, right? Because at least then you have some months to save up between each installment of the novels. Whereas here you're buying pretty much every month. Although I think it said at the end of this one, the next short story for them is not for another 3 issues. Because it said 229.
Yeah, I think so.
And this was issue 226. So we're going to go 3 issues without it. But I doubt we're going to go 3 issues without a short story. I think they're just going to change what short story we're getting. Let's see. Trying to see what happened. 220. Yeah, because it said 229 is the next part of Tales from the Occlusion Zone. So, and then 227. It doesn't. We don't have a clue on if we're getting a short story or not. We have a cover though. It's got Ezra on the top. Okay, we are getting a High Republic short story, but why is it? So is it not Tales from the Occlusion Zone then?
Who knows?
Because it said 229. I swear it said 229 is when we're getting the next part. I swear that's what it said. Let me double check. I do have my copy here, so let me. Since we're running short anyways, I figured we can talk about this stuff. Normally we wouldn't, but normally by now we would just give it its score. But I'm curious, like how this is being delivered to us. Yeah, issue 229. So yeah, next issue it says we're getting a story called Chronicles of Corellia from Alyssa Wong. So Alyssa, we're probably getting a Crash story.
Probably.
Because if Alyssa's writing it and it's taking place on Corellia, we're probably getting a Crash story next month. So we're still getting a High Republic story, but we're getting a Crash story rather than... Which Corellia is not in the Occlusion Zone.
I don't think so.
At the moment.
Corellia's
At the moment,
Core
anyways.
World,
Yeah, it's
isn't it?
core. It's near core, yeah. So it's not... Yeah, it's safe at the moment. Until, you know... I'm curious what the plan is with the occlusion, with the wall, though, because right now, Marchion's got his deal with... Well, that hasn't happened yet on the timeline, because the timeline for that is after the short story, because that's... The short story still takes place before... before Temptation of the Force.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
When does Protri Vader die?
Oh, he's been dead.
No, I mean, I know that, but I mean, because of how the time is...
Well,
working
Eye
for
of
the short
Darkness.
stories.
Well, so what part of the short stories did he die in? Like what short story would be after his death? Is that where?
Yeah.
Okay, so no big
That's my
deal.
question.
No big deal is still before it, but the Friend or Foe. So the very next one. So the second short story, he's already dead by. Or at least it's concurrent with that.
Yeah, because I was like, are they...
Because, some stories are concurrent. So.
Yeah, I'm like, are they celebrating the fact that he's dead, or...
No, because that would have been a while ago. Because, like, a bunch of stuff has happened since then. Like, Escape from Valos happened since then. Defy the Storm has happened already. So, like, literally the only story that's after this is Temptation of the Force. Current, like, at least at the current calculations that we have for the timeline. Until we get, like, a official timeline guide.
Okay.
Which usually we don't get that until the High Republic Insiders get collected. So once the short stories are collected into a book, that's when we'll get that.
Yeah. I was just trying to think of reasons why the Nihil would be celebrating.
And even then they don't. Even then they don't track the short stories in that, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like I still had to figure out that a little bit on my own. But yeah, I'd give it It's a strong 7, 7.5.
I was figuring about the same 7.5.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like I said, if you can afford to, definitely check out the short stories. They are worth reading. It's a great example of seeing the writers you already like for the High Republic getting to continue practice, putting their skills to use, and just getting us to know these characters a little bit more as well. The non-main characters, which to me the Adrians are the Adrians are the first characters we technically meet if we go by what the order that things came out, which is because we got the short story before we got Light of the Jedi. And so we met the Adrians before anybody else. So
God, so much has happened since then.
Back when they were, being part of the people that built Starlight Beacon.
Things were better and filled with hope.
Yeah. Hope is coming back. We're getting.
Not for me, it's not. It's not over until it's over.
The light is there. It's just further away. But yeah, so thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley.
Yeah.
There you can watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. Also be sure to check out our Discord, which is also linked wherever you are watching, so you can become a part of our community. You can also find me on Twitter at EscapeReality94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. Seth.
Yes, you can catch some friends of ours every Sunday from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time over at the Steam_Dungeon on YouTube.com at Trials of Naboo. I don't know what the hell's going on. They just completed a dungeon, I think, and they're figuring out what the rewards from that are.
Okay. So, yeah, check them out.
At least as I understand it.
Yeah, check our friends out. They're great. Once again, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we deep dive into the first season of the Clone Wars.
Oh, God. All right.
I've spoken.
Y'all be safe out there.